The Vikings just pulled off a massive, massive move, and it comes with extra positive news that I'm going to tell you about in this video. Hit subscribe if you're a Vikings fan and you want anything NFC North related. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, right, Lions fans out there? Okay, anyway, let's jump into this one, okay? This is really, really interesting that the Minnesota Vikings have found a way to keep Brian Flores in the room, having extended him as the DC going forward, of course, with the caveat that Brian Flores could still go and get a head coaching opportunity with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to get to you in the next segment why that actually has even gotten better. Why the likelihood of him actually not getting a head coaching job just got even better. I'm going to tell you that in a moment. But first, let's just appreciate for a second at all of the national narratives around Brian Flores were wrong. Every single national narrative, the Dallas Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers, the Washington Commanders, the San Francisco 49ers. I saw narratives like this everywhere. Everybody wanted Brian Flores to be their defensive coordinator. Every team that had a struggling defense this season was hoping that he could come in and be the guy. Like, it was a crazy thing, and it was hard for me to not look at that and think, man, if all of the national narratives are saying all of these different teams, then I have to wonder if that means Brian Flores is shopping around. I have to wonder if that means that Brian Flores is kind of looking for a new opportunity. We talked in the past about the Dallas Cowboys and kind of the whole major narrative around, one of the greatest offenses in the league last year, just one solid defensive coordinator away from a Super Bowl, right? Like Dallas area radio stations, I even listened in on their show to find out, like, what are they saying out there? What do they believe about what's going on here? And I don't need to tell you, of course, that keeping Brian Flores around is absolutely monstrous. It's massive. It gives KOC a lift. It gives whatever quarterback situation you end up having come August a huge lift, because you can bank on that defense, right? You can write those checks, and you know that Brian Flores and this defense are going to cash them. That's not the right phrase. I can't remember the right phrase. It's early in the morning, and I'm trying to do math, okay? But anyway, let's get to what KOC had to say about Flo, and then we're going to get to why the situation around him getting a head coaching job is actually improved for the likes of Minnesota Vikings fans, okay? Here's what KOC had to say. Brian has a unique ability to connect with players, understand their skill sets, and put them in positions to maximize their impact on the field. The identity of our defense is a reflection of his leadership and preparation. On a personal level, I've really valued the relationship we've built over the last 3 years, and that shared trust, alignment, and high standard will continue to be critical to our success. According to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport, Flores remains a candidate for the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens head coaching vacancies. That's not new information to you, by the way. He'll stay in Minnesota if he doesn't land either job. Okay? That's the good news, right? So what's the likelihood that he goes out there and gets one of those jobs, Steelers or Ravens? This is where I've got some good news for you guys. Brian Flores was an early favorite in Pittsburgh. You guys might remember that. But he's become less likely as time has gone on, and I'm not sure if you're aware of that. I've been listening to the news, been reading the news, and following this for several weeks because I cover multiple teams, and there are several teams that are in need of a DC, so it's been really on my radar, right? The Steelers have the Pittsburgh Steelers now have Chris Shula, who has totally gained a head of steam from the Los Angeles Rams. The situation around Shula and why this whole thing is kind of taking a while to get resolved is because you've got guys like Shula who are still in, and they're going into the NFC Championship game this weekend, and, what are they going to do? Like, they cannot just do second interviews right now in the middle of the time. That's why things are taking so long for the Steelers and for the Ravens, to be fair. And I think that as this time has gone on, it has gotten better for Brian Flores. Another name that has gained a massive head of steam in Pittsburgh is Mike McCarthy. He has flown up the charts. He was a guy that when the coaching cycle kind of first started getting a head of steam, he wasn't on the list. And now Mike McCarthy is the second favorite for likelihood of becoming the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You got Chris Shula, then you have Mike McCarthy, and now Brian Flores down at number 3. So he has become less popular of an option as time has gone on. But it's not just the Steelers. By the way, the thing about the Steelers that's really interesting, okay, this is a team that has only had a handful of coaches over the last 5-6 decades. So when you look over that chunk of time that they've only had a few coaches, you have to imagine the organization is going for something similar to what they did with Mike Tomlin, right? Now, Mike Tomlin was not a proven coach, so I guess that could be an argument for, like, you know, a Brian Flores type or a Chris Shula type maybe. But I think the safe bet is to go with a guy who has a lot of head coaching experience, like a Mike McCarthy. A guy like him does make a lot of sense, and I think that's the reason that he's flying up the charts in terms of being close to the odds-on favorite now, almost negligible difference to be the Steelers' head coach. Now, that's just odds. You know, you never know what can happen. But what about Baltimore? This is really interesting, okay? Check this out about Baltimore. And let me know, by the way, who you think's going to get, who you think that the Baltimore Ravens are going to end up with and the Steelers are going to end up with. Like, give me your thoughts on that. But I would think Mike McCarthy for the Steelers. That might sound crazy. They might go with someone younger. I would understand that argument. But anyway, let's talk about what Schefter said about the Ravens, okay? Their approach to hiring a head coach similar to approach of the draft. They sit back at the end of the round. They watch all the teams in front of them, make their moves, and then the Baltimore Ravens step in and make a selection of whatever greatness is left. So, you know, yeah, I think you get where that's going, okay? They're sitting back. They're letting Atlanta hire. They're letting Miami hire. They're letting Tennessee hire. These would not have been the hires the Ravens would have made anyway. So the coordinators are coming off the dance floor, and then in the end, they're going to pick some guy that's going to come in there and probably be as much of a success of a coach as many of their top draft picks have been. 3 of the Ravens candidates have reportedly made it to the second round of interviews with the team. That is Anthony Weaver, Jesse Minter, and Joe Brady. Notice who's not on that list and who could be on that list. Last I checked, the Minnesota Vikings are not currently in the playoffs along with most of the rest of the NFL, and Brian Flores has not gotten a second head coach opportunity. Okay, we'll keep that in the back of your mind. Ravens did 16 interviews in the first round of search. 2 have been hired, which is Stefanski and Saleh to the Tennessee recently. 5, Joseph, Webb, Kubiak, Shielhaas, Shula are still in playoffs and couldn't do in-person interviews until next week. And then, of course, you have Weaver, Minter, and Brady among finalists. So they'll do more second-round interviews, but they have not brought in Brian Flores, which tells me Brian Flores is not in on the Ravens job, right? Even if technically, according to guys like Ian Rappaport, technically like those are the 2 jobs that he would be in for. He's so far down the list, by the way. I looked it up because I'm always checking the odds on this stuff. He has less than a 1% chance. Brian Flores has less than a 1% chance to end up the Baltimore Ravens head coach right now. As things currently stand, things can change, but just that's kind of wild when you think about it, right? So could he end up the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach or the Ravens head coach? Sure, that's entirely possible. The Ravens is another organization that has not had a different head coach in like 18 years. So yeah, you got 2 teams here who are really like, they're making a decision that in their mind probably is going to be for a really, really long time. But the wild thing for me, for Brian Flores to have been a favorite and then become less and less of a favorite over time in the Steelers job, and then Ravens, like he hasn't even gotten a second interview yet, and he's an available person right now. He's pretty available. So I think that's pretty wild. I think that tells you everything you need to know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, though, as always. I appreciate you, and I hope you guys have a fantastic start or rest of your Thursday.